Few names echo with the power and the terror of the Viking era like that of Ragnar Lothbrok. A figure shrouded in the mists of time, Ragnar Lothbrok straddles the line between history and myth. A legendary Viking chieftain, his sagas have been passed down through generations, his exploits shaping the image of the fearsome Norse warrior. Ragnar's life is a tale spun on the loom of the skalds, the Viking poets, their words weaving a rich tapestry of adventure, bravery, and ambition. From audacious raids on distant shores to epic battles against formidable foes, Ragnar's story is one of relentless pursuit of power and glory. His journey, from a young warrior honing his battle skills in the brutal Viking world to a legendary king commanding the respect and fear of his people, is a saga that has captivated the imagination of many. From a young Viking warrior to a legendary king, the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok is a tale of ambition, conquest, and legacy. Every legend has a beginning, and Ragnar's tale starts in the harsh landscapes of Scandinavia. Ragnar Lothbrok, a name that echoes through the annals of history, was molded in the rugged terrains of Scandinavia. Born into a world where the strong thrived and the weak perished, young Ragnar was quick to understand the law of the land. His upbringing was steeped in the rich cultural milieu of the Viking era, an epoch known for its fierce warriors, explorers, and traders. The Viking society was a complex one, marked by a strict code of honor, a deep reverence for the gods, and an unwavering belief in the valiant afterlife of Valhalla. Ragnar, from his tender years, was immersed in these beliefs and traditions. They shaped his worldview and laid the groundwork for the formidable leader he was to become. Ragnar's early life wasn't all folklore and festivities. The Viking era was a time of constant conflict and conquest, and Ragnar was no stranger to these trials. His first forays into the world of raids and battles were as much a rite of passage as they were tests of his mettle. Ragnar's strategic genius was evident even in these early skirmishes. His ability to outthink his enemies, to turn the tide of battle with a single command, was nothing short of remarkable. In one notable battle, Ragnar, barely out of his youth, led a small band of Vikings against a much larger enemy force. Despite the odds, Ragnar's strategic acumen and raw courage turned what should have been a certain defeat into a decisive victory. This triumph not only cemented his reputation as a formidable warrior, but also marked the beginning of his ascent to legendary status. These early victories were but a taste of the legendary exploits that were yet to come. As Ragnar's fame grew, so did his ambition. The fearless warrior's aspirations were no longer limited to just raids and battles. He yearned for something more, something greater. He yearned for a crown. Ragnar's journey to kingship was marked by bold and daring exploits. His raids on the shores of France and England were not just about plunder. They were strategic moves on a grand chessboard. His victories didn't just earn him riches, they also won him considerable influence and power, but the road to the throne was not paved with gold alone. It was also a path filled with political intrigue and machinations. Ragnar, the battle-hardened warrior, had to become Ragnar, the cunning strategist. He had to navigate the treacherous waters of politics, forming alliances, outmaneuvering rivals, and sometimes making difficult sacrifices. Once he ascended the throne, Ragnar's leadership style was unique, a blend of the warrior and the statesman. He was a king who knew the value of both the sword and the quill. His reign was marked by significant military victories, but also by diplomatic successes. He expanded the Viking territories, yes, but he also fostered trade and improved relations with other nations. Ragnar's rule had a profound impact on the Viking world. He didn't just lead his people to victories, he led them to a new era. Under his reign, the Vikings became a force to be reckoned with, not just feared warriors, but also respected statesmen. His leadership paved the way for the golden age of the Vikings, a time of prosperity and power. Ragnar Lothbrok, a name that would inspire both awe and fear, was now a king, and not just any king. A king who was a warrior, a strategist, a diplomat, and a visionary. A king who would leave an indelible mark on history, and whose legacy would endure long after his time. Behind every great man is a great family, and Ragnar's was no exception. Let's delve into the lives of those who stood by Ragnar, his wives and his famous sons, and understand how they were instrumental in shaping his life and legacy. Ragnar's first wife, Lagertha, was a fierce shield maiden, a woman of great strength and bravery. Their union produced a son, Bjorn Ironside, and two daughters. Bjorn would grow up to become a legendary Viking chief, much like his father, and his fame would even eclipse Ragnar's in some accounts. Ragnar's second wife, the cunning and beautiful Aslaug, was said to be a Volva, a seeress in the Viking world. Together, Ragnar and Aslaug had 4 sons, each of whom would grow to leave their own mark on history. There was Ivar the Boneless, a warrior both feared and respected for his strategic mind. Then came Ubbe, who was known for his diplomatic skills, and Hvitserk, a fearless fighter. And finally, the youngest, Sigurd Snake in the Eye, who was believed to have mystical powers. These sons, each unique in their own way, would carry on Ragnar's name and his legacy. They would lead their own raids, rule over their own lands, and even, in some cases, surpass their father in fame and power. But it wasn't just his sons who carried on Ragnar's legacy. His wives, Lagertha and Aslaug, were integral to his story. Lagertha's strength and warrior spirit and Aslaug's wisdom and foresight were key components in Ragnar's rise to power and his rule as king. Their influence can be seen not just in Ragnar's life, but also in the lives of their sons, who inherited their mother's traits and used them to their advantage. Even in death, Ragnar's legacy lived on through his sons, who would go on to shape the Viking world in their own right. Ragnar's family as a whole was a testament to his greatness, and their actions and achievements served to keep his name alive long after his death. In the world of history, separating fact from fiction can often be a challenge. And so it is with Ragnar Lothbrok, a figure of such legendary proportions that his true existence has been a subject of intense debate among historians and scholars. His exploits, his victories, his journey to kingship, and his family legacy are so extraordinary they almost verge on the mythical. So, was Ragnar Lothbrok a real historical figure or a creation of imaginative storytelling? On one hand, there are those who firmly believe Ragnar was a real person. They point to the historical texts such as the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, an Icelandic narrative written in the 13th century, and the Gesta Danorum, a 12th century work by Danish historian Saxo Grammaticus. Both of these offer detailed accounts of Ragnar's life and deeds, suggesting a grounding in historical fact. And then there are the archaeological findings like the runestones in Sweden, which bear inscriptions referring to a Ragnar. On the other hand, there are those who argue that Ragnar is a composite character, a mythical figure pieced together from the lives of several historical Viking leaders. These skeptics point out that the sagas and historical texts are not always reliable, being colored by the passage of time and the embellishment of storytellers. They note that the details of Ragnar's life are often contradictory or fantastical, such as his supposed marriage to a shield maiden who turned into a giantess, or his alleged death in a pit of snakes. The truth, as it often does, likely lies somewhere in between. Perhaps there was a historical figure named Ragnar who became the basis for the legend. Perhaps the stories we know are an amalgamation of various Viking tales crafted and refined over centuries. Whatever the case, it's clear that the character of Ragnar, be he man or myth, has left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. Whether man or myth, the legend of Ragnar Lothbrok continues to captivate us to this day. Before we conclude, here are 5 intriguing facts about Ragnar Lothbrok you may not know. First, the name Ragnar Lothbrok translates to Ragnar Hairy Breeches, a nickname he reportedly earned due to his unique choice of attire. Second, although his existence is shrouded in mystery, Ragnar's story has been passed down through generations, blending fact and fiction. Third, legend has it that he was the son of the Swedish king Sigurd Ring, which could explain his rise to power. Fourth, he is said to have married 3 times, with each of his wives being formidable women in their own right. His sons, including Ivar the Boneless and Bjorn Ironside, are famous figures in Viking lore. Finally, though his death is debated, one popular tale suggests he met his end in a pit of snakes, a fate devised by King Aella of Northumbria. Through these facts, we get a glimpse into the life of a man who, whether real or imagined, left an indelible mark on Viking history.